So what if I told you that a multi-million-dollar restaurant failing a randomized health inspection on like a really busy Friday night
Yeah.
was directly caused by a microscopic layer of bacteria acting as a thermal blanket inside a dish machine?
It sounds crazy, but it's completely real.
Right. I mean, you usually picture the culinary arts with this expectation of like romance. It's almost poetry, you
Oh,
know?
totally.
You envision a chef in a pristine white coat, passionately tasting a simmering sauce, maybe adding a dash of wine here, a pinch of salt there. It's treated by society as this pure, intuitive art.
Yeah, we culturally love that image. I mean, we
Mhm.
really love to think of cooking as this, beautiful, visceral dance of creativity and passion.
Exactly. But today, we are stripping away that romance entirely.
Completely.
Because when you step into the world of high volume professional culinary operations, that romantic painting gets ripped off the wall real quick.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at a landscape that is brutally unforgiving for you. It's this rigorous system of physics, fluid dynamics, human ergonomics, and just incredibly tight financial metrics.
Yeah, I mean, a commercial kitchen is the absolute definition of an industrial engineering environment. The people running it just happen to be wearing aprons instead of hard hats.
Right. So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to explore the hidden economics of kitchen chaos.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. And we're pulling from a massive stack of operational manuals. We've
Okay.
got training standards from the Culinary Institute of America, service overviews, these really fascinating, incredibly detailed technical instructional design briefs covering a concept they actually call the physics of failure.
Which is such a great term. The core debate underlying all of these operational sources is essentially the battle between a physics-first training mindset and the more traditional rule-following mindset.
Right, like just do what I say.
Exactly. Telling a cook, do this because it's the kitchen rule, creates a vastly different outcome than actually explaining the invisible forces at play.
Right.
So we're going to track how minor, unseen mechanical errors compound into these catastrophic financial and operational losses.
Basically focusing on what the manuals call the three enemies of the shift.
Right.
And the first of those enemies rears its head before a single ingredient is even touched, right? It's all about the workstation itself.
Yeah, the literal table you're working on.
Because the CIA training protocols mandate something that seems so trivial like, you might just skip past it.
Yeah.
Placing a damp towel under your cutting board.
Right.
Why is that treated as an absolute mandate and not just like a neat kitchen tip?
Well, a sliding board introduces absolute unpredictability into a workspace that is literally filled with sharp steel.
Yeah, fair point.
So the damp towel acts as a physical anchor. It creates suction and friction, locking that plastic board to the stainless steel or granite counter.
Oh.
It's basically structural engineering on a micro scale.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the physical force a cook is exerting.
I mean, how much kinetic force are we actually talking about when someone is just, chopping vegetables for a soup?
Well, when bearing down on a dense root vegetable, a cook applies between 15 to 20 pounds of downward and forward kinetic force through that steel blade.
Jeez, 20 pounds.
Yeah. So if you have a dry plastic board sitting on a slate counter, you've created the perfect condition for dynamic friction failure.
It's like driving a heavy SUV on completely bald tires across an icy bridge.
That is exactly it.
There is just zero natural traction. The moment that cutting surface shifts even a fraction of an inch under that 20 pounds of pressure, the blade deflects laterally.
And a lateral deflection means the vector of force is suddenly moving horizontally, completely out of your control.
And straight toward the hand holding the food.
Right. Which leads us directly to the first enemy of the shift, the dull blade.
Okay, yes.
People who don't cook professionally are often instinctively terrified of a surgically sharp knife.
Oh, absolutely.
But from an operational safety standpoint, a dull edge is the ultimate physical hazard in the room.
Right. I've always heard a dull knife is more dangerous, but the physics behind it are wild.
They really are.
Because when a blade loses its edge, the microscopic tip actually rounds out, all right? And that drastically increases the surface area of contact with the skin of the food.
Exactly. So instead of a clean lateral shearing action that just separates the fibers, a dull knife requires exponential downward kinetic force just to break the skin of the ingredient.
Because the blade won't bite naturally.
Right. So the cook overcompensates.
Yeah.
They start muscling the tool, pressing down harder and harder.
And just like those bald tires on wet asphalt, the dull blade hydroplanes right off the slick skin of an onion or a tomato.
And when it hydroplanes, it has to go somewhere.
Yikes.
Usually that somewhere is a finger.
Right.
And if that knife slips entirely out of the hand and falls toward the floor, the operational manuals dictate a very rigid protocol.
Which is the absolute rule of kitchen gravity, right?
Yeah.
A falling knife has no handle.
Precisely.
You do not reach for it. You don't try to like catch it with your foot or something. You step back, put your hands up, and let the floor take the hit.
Because a chipped French knife can be replaced for $50.
Right.
But severed flexor tendons are a permanent, life-altering disaster.
Wow. Yeah. The safety element is massive, obviously. But the impact of the dull blade bleeds heavily into the hidden economics of the kitchen, too, right?
Oh, heavily. Because a dull blade doesn't slice. It actually causes blunt force trauma to the ingredient.
Blunt force trauma to a vegetable.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It physically crushes the cellular walls of the food
Yeah.
rather than cleanly severing them.
But, I mean, how does that actually hit the restaurant's bottom line? Like, a bruised tomato still goes in the soup, right? Does it really matter?
It causes rapid financial leakage.
Ah.
Yeah, because crushing plant cells results in massive cell fluid loss. You are literally squeezing the moisture out of the vegetable onto the cutting board.
Oh, I see.
And that moisture loss ruins the structural integrity of the food. It causes rapid oxidation, premature browning, and it drastically destroys the shelf life of your prepped ingredients.
Wait, so it actually rots faster?
Exactly. You might prep 50 pounds of vegetables intending for them to last 4 days, but because of cellular trauma, they rot in 2. You're throwing away raw profit.
That is wild. And you know, this is actually my favorite detail from the whole stack of sources. This exact cellular trauma is the science behind why onions make you cry.
Yes.
Like every time you're weaving over a cutting board, it's not just how onions are. It is entirely your knife technique and a dull blade.
It is entirely the physics of your workstation.
Wow.
Because plant cells have these microscopic internal compartments called vacuoles. You can think of them as tiny biological water balloons holding different chemicals. In an onion, some of those balloons hold enzymes and others hold sulfur compounds.
So when you crush the onion cells with a dull knife, you're essentially popping all those water balloons at once.
Exactly. The enzymes mix with the sulfur compounds and create this volatile sulfur gas that drifts up and hits the moisture in your eyes.
And a sharp blade just completely avoids all of that.
Yeah. Even a smooth-looking chef's knife has microscopic jagged teeth along the edge, acting like a saw.
Right.
So a surgically sharp blade cleanly glides through the cell walls, slicing the balloons rather than crushing them.
Oh, trapping those essential oils and volatile sulfur compounds safely inside the vegetable where they belong?
Yep. Clean cuts equal better yield, superior texture, and no tears.
Okay, so the workstation is firmly anchored with the towel. The blade is sharp and acting as a microscopic saw. We've optimized the tools.
Right.
But the system still relies on a fragile human body holding that steel. So how do operations fuse the cook and the blade without causing immense muscular fatigue or like carpal tunnel over a chaotic 10-hour shift?
Well, this brings us to the biomechanics of the kitchen, specifically 2 techniques, the grip and the shield.
Okay.
The manuals emphasize abandoning the natural human instinct to grab the knife handle wrapped in a tight fist, like you're holding a baseball bat.
Which is how literally almost everyone holds a knife in their home kitchen. It feels like the most secure way to hold something heavy.
It feels secure, yeah, but the standard fist grip severely compromises your operational control.
Really?
Yeah, you end up fighting the weight of the metal. The blade acts like a wobbling pendulum at the end of your wrist, relying entirely on forearm muscle to keep it steady.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is. The professional standard is the pinch grip. You choke up past the handle and physically pinch the flat sides of the actual steel blade with your thumb and index finger.
Okay.
And then you just wrap the remaining 3 fingers loosely around the handle.
I mean, it feels super counterintuitive the first time you try it. You're putting your bare fingers right onto the sharpest object in the room.
I know, but physically, by choking up on the metal, you shift the center of gravity directly into the palm of your hand.
Oh, wow. So you're mechanically fusing the blade to your wrist, relying on skeletal alignment rather than muscular strain.
Exactly. Your bones are doing the work, not your muscles.
That's brilliant.
But the dominant hand holding the knife is actually the easy part. The non-dominant hand, the one holding the food, is in the active danger zone.
Right, right. And that requires the claw hand. You curl your fingertips backward toward your palm, letting your middle knuckles extend forward.
Yes.
So it creates a literal sheer cliff face of bone for the flat side of the blade to write against, and your fingertips are completely tucked away and shielded.
It is the ultimate biomechanical defense. But once the cook is locked in safely and efficiently, they have to start executing the geometry of the kitchen.
Okay, I actually want to push back on this geometry aspect.
Okay, sure.
I read the sections on the mandatory shapes and sizes for vegetables, and frankly, it seems insane for a business famously obsessed with food costs down to the penny.
How so?
Well, to get a perfect geometric square cut out of a round potato or a tapered carrot, you have to slice off all the rounded edges to square it up.
Right.
You're basically discarding up to 20% of the vegetable just to make it flat. How does any kitchen survive if they are throwing away a fifth of their product?
It is a phenomenal question. But here's the thing. In a professional kitchen, those irregular scraps never hit the trash can.
Never.
Never. A disciplined operation runs on a strict zero-waste philosophy. The scraps from squaring off your vegetables become the backbone of secondary preparations.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're used to fortify stocks, simmer down into purees, or utilized in staff meals. You extract every single drop of flavor and value from the trim.
So you basically separate the function of the vegetable from its visual presentation.
Exactly.
You run the raw vegetable through the physical process of creating flat-sided rectangular blocks, what the manuals call culinary lumber.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
And once you mill your raw ingredients into that culinary lumber, the progression of cuts is purely scalable math.
Right.
You slice the block into flat planks, stack the planks, and cut them into uniform sticks. If you cut them a 1/4 inch thick, you have the batonette.
Which is basically a thick, high-end French fry.
Exactly. But if you tighten your measurements and slice those sticks an 1/8 of an inch thick, you have the julienne, which looks like a delicate matchstick.
Oh.
And if you take those julienne matchsticks, bundle them together, and cross-cut them at 1/16 of an inch intervals, you yield the microscopic Brunoise cube.
Okay, but why? Why do we need a 1/16 of an inch perfect cube? It takes an immense amount of labor to achieve that level of precision across 10 pounds of carrots. Why obsess over it?
Because of the math of surface area and how it dictates thermodynamic control.
Thermodynamics again.
Always.
Hmm.
A perfectly uniform geometric cut results in an exponential multiplier in exposed surface area. When you drop a perfectly uniform Brunoise into a hot pan, heat penetrates instantly and uniformly across every single piece.
Oh, so it's all about triggering the Maillard reaction.
Exactly. The Maillard reaction is that complex chemical process where amino acids and reducing sugars react under high heat to create browning.
And hundreds of new flavor compounds.
Right. You want that chemical reaction happening at the exact same rate across the entire pan.
Makes sense.
If your cuts are uneven, the small pieces brain to a bitter, carbonized crisp, while the large chunks are still completely raw and watery in the center.
So perfect geometry isn't just about making a plate look pretty for a photo.
Not at all.
It's about ensuring every bite hits the palate with the exact same chemical flavor profile.
Yes.
But, perfect prep geometry is completely useless if the thermodynamic integrity of the ingredients is destroyed before you even turn on the stove.
Which introduces the second enemy of the shift.
Yeah.
The rapid purge.
Right. So let's talk about the reality of a Friday night rush.
Let's do it.
Tickets are printing to the floor. The line is getting absolutely crushed by orders. A cook checks their station and realizes they are short on prepped chicken breasts.
A nightmare scenario.
They need chicken right now. So they grab frozen proteins from the deep freeze and throw them in a sink under running hot tap water to thaw them out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Or they just leave them sitting on a warm prep counter next to the oven.
Yeah.
I mean, how else do you survive a rush without taking that shortcut?
Well, the instructional design briefs aggressively debunk that mentality. Taking that shortcut basically guarantees operational disaster.
Really?
Oh, yeah. When you thaw frozen proteins under hot water or at ambient room temperature, you are forcing violent, rapid phase changes inside the meat.
Right, because when water freezes inside a chicken breast, it doesn't just sit there. It expands into jagged, microscopic ice crystals.
Exactly. And if you thaw that protein too rapidly, those expanding and contracting ice daggers violently tear through the delicate, microscopic muscle fiber walls of the meat.
Wow. If you've ever, quickly thawed a steak or chicken breast in the microwave and wondered why it tasted like dry, chewy rubber when you cooked it, you've experienced this thermodynamic failure. When you tear those muscle walls, the protein can no longer hold on to its internal moisture.
And this unscientific thawing maximizes purge.
Purge.
Yeah, purge is the industry term for the loss of intracellular moisture.
Really?
When you open a package of meat and see all that pink liquid pooled at the bottom of the tray, that isn't blood. That is the literal moisture from inside the muscle cells leaking out.
Oh, wow. I never knew that.
And that liquid represents raw weight yield. The briefs note that this micro loss of weight drains profitability down to the exact penny.
So you paid the supplier for a 6-ounce portion of fish, but after a rapid purge in the sink, you're serving a dry 4.5-ounce piece to the guest.
Exactly.
The economics of yield loss are brutal, but the briefs point out another phenomenon called the delta T. It's not just a financial hit. Rapid thawing is a massive food safety failure.
Right. Delta T refers to the change in temperature. When you thaw rapidly from the outside, in using hot water, you establish a massive temperature gradient between the rock-hard frozen core of the protein and the warm, rapidly thawed exterior.
Oh, I see. So the outside of the chicken breast might be sitting at a dangerous 60 degrees, incubating bacteria, while the inside is still a solid block of ice at 30 degrees.
Exactly. And when that piece of unevenly thawed protein hits a hot grill, the thermodynamics fail catastrophically.
How so?
Well, the exterior of the meat dries out, overcooks, and burns before that frozen core can ever absorb enough heat to reach safe mandatory pasteurization thresholds like 165 degrees Fahrenheit for poultry.
Wow, you completely ruin the uniformity of the back.
Completely.
You end up serving food that is tough and overcooked on the outside and dangerously raw on the inside. Guest trust just evaporates instantly.
It's staggering how a shortcut that saves 20 minutes on prep completely torpedoes the financial yield, the flavor profile, and the basic safety of the dish.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's trace the journey so far. We've established perfect workstation biomechanics for our prep. We've maintained perfect thermodynamic integrity during thawing. And we've controlled the heat during cooking.
Yep.
The food goes out to the dining room. The guests are thrilled. The shift is winding down. Standards point out that the entire operation can still catastrophically fail after the food leaves the kitchen deep in the dish room.
Right. This brings us to the microscopic level.
Yeah.
The third enemy of the shift, the biofilm cascade.
Okay, when I saw dish room and physics of failure linked together in the briefs, I was completely baffled.
Really?
Yeah, we're talking about washing pots and pans. A dishwasher sprays it with high-pressure hot water, hits it with some soap, runs it through the massive industrial machine, and stacks it up. Isn't a quick, heavy rinse good enough for a busy cleanup?
A good enough rinse completely fails against the relentless realities of microbiology. This is where the chemistry of failure takes over. When organic food debris isn't properly mechanically scrubbed from a surface with friction, bacteria survive. And those surviving bacteria begin to secrete something called an extracellular polymeric substance, or EPS.
Extracellular polymeric substance. Can you break down what that actually looks like?
You can think of EPS as an invisible, microscopic, sticky matrix. It's like biological concrete.
Biological concrete. Yikes.
Yeah, bacteria use this matrix to anchor themselves to stainless steel pans, plastic cutting boards, and tile walls.
Right.
Once this biofilm matrix cures and hardens, standard low-pressure wiping or simple chemical sanitizing sprays literally bounce right off it.
You're kidding.
No, they cannot penetrate the matrix. The bacteria underneath are completely shielded.
So a dishwasher thinks they're spraying down a clean, shiny pan, but they're actually just washing the top of an invisible shield protecting a thriving bacterial colony.
Exactly. And the operational habits of a rushed kitchen make it exponentially worse. The briefs specifically call out the danger of the nesting incubator effect.
Right, stacking warm, wet pans right out of the dish pit is a fatal operational error.
Yeah, when you take stainless steel hotel pans that are still wet and radiating heat from the wash cycle and nest them tightly inside one another, you trap ambient heat and moisture in a dark, sealed environment.
You're creating a perfect incubator.
Yes, it accelerates bacterial colonization on that biofilm exponentially.
The biological hazard is scary, obviously, but the mind-blowing part of the brief for me was the mechanical impact of this microscopic failure.
Oh, it's wild.
We think of bacteria only as a health hazard, but the EPS biofilm physically breaks the heavy-duty dish machines themselves.
The engineering consequences are staggering. When pans covered in microscopic EPS debris and hard water scale are repeatedly run through high-temp industrial dish machines, that organic matrix physically coats the internal heating elements and heat exchangers inside the machine.
Wait, so all that microscopic organic gunk acts as a literal thermal blanket?
Exactly. So the machine is drawing massive amounts of excess electrical current, trying desperately to heat the rinse water.
But it can't.
Right, because the heating element is heavily insulated by the biofilm and scale buildup. The heat cannot transfer to the fluid.
Wow.
The machine physically fails to heat the water to the mandatory 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 82 degrees Celsius.
Which is the absolute minimum temperature required by health regulations for a sanitizing rinse.
Exactly. So a lazy, friction-free rinse by a Rush dishwasher at 8 o'clock at night creates an invisible biofilm.
Right.
That biofilm insulates the machine's heater. The insulated heater causes the rinse water temperature to drop below legal limits.
And that temperature drop results in a direct health regulatory compliance violation during a randomized health inspection 3 weeks later.
Yes, the entire operation is shut down because of a microscopic failure in friction.
It is the ultimate butterfly effect, mapped out through bacteria and dishwater.
It really is.
So when we step back and look at this entire journey, the dynamic friction of the workstation, the cellular trauma of the dull blade, the physics of the rapid purge, and the chemistry of the biofilm cascade, what is the ultimate takeaway for someone actually working in or managing one of these high-pressure environments?
I think it validates the necessity of the physics-first mindset.
Right.
If you are a kitchen manager, telling your team, do this because it's the rule, or wash that pan better because I said so, creates friction. It builds resentment because it feels arbitrary.
It just feels like micromanagement.
But if you teach them the underlying science, if you explain the dynamic friction of a dull blade deflecting into a hand, if you explain the thermodynamics of an expanding ice dagger tearing a chicken's muscle fibers and draining the restaurant's raw profits,
Right.
if you explain the chemistry of an EPS biofilm insulating the heat exchanger,
Right.
you elevate the job entirely.
You really do.
You build an unshakable culture of operational accountability because the team understands the invisible forces they are manipulating every single shift. You protect the team's physical safety, and you protect the financial bottom line.
You strip away the poetry, but you replace it with an immense, profound respect for the reality of the craft.
Precisely.
And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. A small experiment you can run in your own kitchen today to prove that physics dictates flavor.
Oh, the apple experiment.
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to visualize this.
It really is. Take an apple or a carrot, cut half of it into an uneven, lazy, jagged rough chop. Just hack it up on the board.
Okay.
Then take the time to cut the other half into a flawless 1/16 of an inch fine brunoise, a pile of tiny, perfect, uniform cubes, eat a pinch of the rough chop, and then eat a pinch of the brunoise raw, side by side.
Now, the chemical composition of the two piles sitting in front of you is exactly the same.
Right.
The sugar content hasn't changed, but your perception of the flavor will be wildly different.
Consider whether the pure geometric uniformity and the massively increased surface area blanketing your taste buds literally changes the way your palate perceives the release and concentration of the fructose.
Because it does.
Does the perfectly cut apple actually taste noticeably sweeter simply because of the math?
It is a profound realization when you taste the difference geometry makes.
It really is. It turns out cooking isn't just a murky romantic art form where you toss things in a pot, stir it around, and hope for the best.
Not at all.
It's engineering, it's biology, it's precision, and once you understand the physics, the whole kitchen comes into focus.